We got Kishimoto's Golden Child. And the character who gets forgotten about once we get into Naruto Shippuden. Yo, what's going on, boys and girls? It's Attack on Anime here, back with another video about Boruto versus Neji at various points throughout the series.
When you start hearing people like that say things like that, that gives me a fucking hard on.
So I think the outcome is pretty different, like, depending on which points in time you pick. So, like, I want to start off with Kid Boruto versus Kid Neji, and if I'm being honest, I think Kid Boruto just gets fucking hard stomped. Like, he's just getting fondled.
What did he say?
If you compare Kid Neji to Kid Boruto, like, just in their tuning exams alone, the competition for Boruto is way lower, arguably, than, like, Neji's competition. I'd say the only person who really could, be a contestant against the finale of Naruto's tuning exams is maybe Shinki.
Absolutely fucking not.
Because, like, he's just clearly way better than everyone else in Boruto's tuning exams. Like, it's not even close. But you could argue he could compete with Gaara, Sasuke, and Neji himself, Naruto. I'd argue that maybe Shinki is actually even stronger than Gaara, but I'd say it's just not going to be true with the Tailed Beast as well. But just like raw base form, I'd say Shinki could be stronger. But besides that, like, Boruto's tuning competition is pretty fucking weak. Like, everyone else is a bit of a lightweight. They don't really have much, like, skills. Compared to Neji, who's only fights twice that we actually get to see in Naruto, which is against Hinata, who he just kind of like hard stomps. That's like fighting against a mirror of himself.
The fuck is that?
From like 2 years ago, who's just like worse. So that's kind of a bit of an unfair example. And then he also fights against Naruto, in which he loses. But Naruto only wins that because he uses the Nine Tails chakra. So if we're talking about base to base, like, Naruto just got absolutely manhandled. As soon as Neji busted out the 64 palm trigram move, Naruto's just, all of his chakra points were fucked and he was over. And he literally relied on getting carried by the Nine Tails.
I took offense to that.
So if you have Boruto, like, whose only ninjutsu at this point in the tuning exams is shadow clones and, well, Boruto Stream, which is just like his lightning like kunai that he uses whilst he gets propelled by his two shadow clones for extra movement speed. Like, that's pretty much all he really has. Like, he hasn't learned anything like special besides that.
Fucking degenerate.
So he's pretty much got a bit of lightning jutsu and shadow clones. That's really it. And the most of his abilities, or most of his like power, comes from his taijutsu anyway, using his shadow clones, which this just plays right into Neji's hand. Neji is literally a master of taijutsu. He's not as good as, like, you could argue he's not as good as like Rock Lee, because Rock Lee literally can only use taijutsu, but since he's got the Byakugan and he's like speciality is the gentle fist, he could just fucking just wreck Boruto with like a 64 palm trigram move or 128 palms. Just those two alone probably be enough. Then along with that, he's got other trigram abilities. He's got his Heavenly Palm Spin or Great Heavenly Palm Spin, or like any of the palm spin moves pretty much just like negate like all of Boruto's attacks. So when it comes to a tuning exam fight, I think Neji just hard wins that one, because there's not really much Boruto could do to surprise him since he's got the Byakugan. There's that tiny little angle outside the 360 degrees, like a 5-degree angle behind him that you can't see, and unless Boruto could heavily exploit that, it's really the only way I think Boruto would win. But other than that, Boruto's getting fucking slapped around, like, legit. If Boruto tries to get close with his shadow clones, he just uses the 8 trigrams, Great Heavenly Palm Spin, or just Heavenly Palm Spin, and it's a fucking wrap. You base it off either Hinata's fight, since they're both using taijutsu pretty much, and he just hard stomps her, or Naruto's fight when Naruto's trying to use shadow clones himself and Neji's absolutely destroying him. And also bearing in mind the fact that at this point Naruto is using way more shadow clones than Boruto can even use. Boruto can use like 4.
This is really embarrassing.
Whereas Naruto is using like tons and tons of shadow clones, like too many to count, and Neji is still hard winning. And he only starts to beat Neji once he uses the Nine-Tails chakra. So at this point, I think it's a wrap for Neji. There's only really one other point where we get to see Neji fight like after the tuning exams, because Kishimoto seems to forget Neji exists once we get out past Naruto and into Shippuden.
Ooh, how convenient.
So, well, before Neji dies, like, it doesn't really seem like Neji gets much of a power buff or a power spike or anything. Like, he seems to be kind of the same as when he was, like, a kid, which is kind of a shame, since Neji's shown to be kind of OP during the tuning exams, but he doesn't really, like, scale very well, it seems, with the series. So, I think if you compare, like, I don't know what to call it, like, maybe, like, old teen Neji versus teen Boruto, I think Boruto actually kind of wins this, but as again, it still depends on like how good Neji's taijutsu is and like what speed he can actually keep up with, because Boruto's like known for being a bit of a genius and he's already the best in his class, but as I said, doesn't really mean too much. But once Boruto gets to fucking Karma Seal, and like at the current point we're in Boruto where he's actually able to use the Karma Seal, like absorb ninjutsu, his Jogan as well. I mean, he hasn't quite gained full use of that, like, it just comes and goes, but once he gets full use of that, it's so over for Neji. But even before then, if he's just got the Karma Seal, it gives him, like, huge buffs in terms of damage and speed that was shown in the anime. And also, he's learned, like, not only the Vanishing Rasengan and the Rasengan alone, he also came up with his new Compressed Rasengan, which, I mean, I'd argue that Neji's Heavenly Palm Spin just, like, literally could not compete with.
I can't fucking compete!
Like, it says that it can, like, repel attacks and, you know, repel them at, like, double the attack power that they were originally sent at, but that's obviously, like, capped out. He's not gonna be able to fucking repel every single attack that's coming at him. Like, he's not gonna be able to repel, like, a BG bomb or some shit. So, I just think a Compressed Rasengan would be able to go straight through that. And also, at this point, Boruto's learned, like, more than just lightning style. Like, he's learned water style as well. Could get a combination of those two in there. And it probably isn't really that close. But I'd still say, in terms of, like, hand-to-hand taijutsu combat, Neji is still better.
Stop the cap!
So, if for some reason Boruto couldn't use ninjutsu, he probably still would lose, just because Neji is, like, literally a master in that. And there's not much surprising Boruto can do, even though he usually always does some shit with shadow clones in the anime, where he, like, you know, sends out 4 and 1 pops up from behind him, and then he pops up from the ground as the real one or something. I feel like that could happen, but there's not that much chance it's going to work on Neji, just because of the way his Byakugan works. Like, he can see through most of that kind of shit. But, like, it still is kind of a 50-50, just depending on if Boruto's speed is enough to, like, really give him an edge in hand-to-hand combat, and if his, like, Compressed Rasengan and other ninjutsu that he's learned from the tuning exams to now would actually be able to go through, like, Neji's Heavenly Palm Strike, and if Neji was able to land his 128 strikes onto Boruto, because then if Boruto has his fucking chakra points hit, he's literally, like, useless.
I don't believe you.
So, I mean, it still is kind of a 50-50 in terms of, well, this could happen, that could happen, but I think once they're both, like, older teenagers, it leans more towards Boruto's side, just because Boruto seems to have way more of a power spike. Like, he gains way more abilities than Neji seems to before Neji dies. But I want to hear what you guys think, so let me know down in the comments or some shit. And it's been Attack on Anime, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Bad bitch, if she do it, I say so too. Big 40s and a big ass Drake.